everybody. I am so happy that you're here at Tammy's table. I want you to think about the last house party you went to, the last barbecue you went to. Everybody always ends up in the kitchen and they end up talking about it's like education you can't get in school. It's like wisdom of the elders. So that is what I want the feeling of Tammy's table to be. Is just like the wisdom of the elders, people that have been there before you, people that have gone through whatever you're going through. Um, and it's a comfortable place, right? So the kitchen, like everybody's very chilled out in the kitchen. They're eating, they're drinking, they're chilling out. So I'm super excited to welcome you here. And today I am so happy to welcome CALIDA Jones. CALIDA is, I don't even know where to start. She's a world-renowned violinist. She's played behind Sting and like Bono, and she is all over the country playing. And the way I met her is on a trip to India. We were going to speak to 800,000 people in India. I met her on the plane. I was walking back from the bathroom and I met her on, I was like, "Are you CALIDA?" And she said, "Yes." And we ended up talking for an hour and a half on the plane. Thank God, because that was like a 9 hour flight. Um, but what I loved about CALIDA was her spirit and her focus on helping other people. And I watched her play violin in front of 800,000 people, and that was extraordinary. It was mind blowing. Uh, so girlfriend, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tammy. It's so exciting to be here today. And to clarify, in real life, I played with Stevie Wonder. Sting and Bono couldn't make it.
Oh, I thought I saw. All right, I'll take Stevie Wonder. He's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's
That's my
amazing.
that's my dude.
Yes.
Listen, no matter who you played with, you've had an extraordinary career. And I think it's so interesting how you bring your voice through music. Um, but what we wanted to talk about today was how you bring, like I watched you take the stage in front of 800,000 people. You didn't miss a beat. You weren't nervous. You were like, this is where I was meant to be. And I really want to understand like how you build stage confidence because I think that's an important part of resilience. Like being able to show up who you are as you are, no matter what the circumstances. I think that's a really important part of resilience. So
Yes.
bring the knowledge. Bring the knowledge.
Yes. Well, first, thank you so much for activating this conversation about bringing your confidence to the stage. And I think for me, honestly, um, it's been the discovery process of my purpose, right? Like we all have a purpose for being here, and I and this is full transparency, but I used to I would watch other people and be like, oh, that's my purpose. I'm going to follow them and do what they're doing. And then I realized it wasn't actually authentic to who I was as a person. And in growing and learning in old friendships, new friendships, relationships, I realized that we all have a purpose and only we can complete our purpose. And I think for me, that's what actually activated this newfound confidence. Like I've always been confident. Like my dad told me when I was 5, I got in trouble in kindergarten because I started mocking my kindergarten teacher. And like she was teaching, and I started doing the same thing. He was like, I always knew you were going to do something in education when you got in trouble in kindergarten for getting up to teach people how to read. But what that also unpacked was that the purpose that you have, only you can live it. No one else can live it authentically and freely. And that's a liberating way to approach life now. And that's how I approach everything. Like, I'm living my purpose right now. My purpose is helping others. My purpose is putting others before me, and listening to pain points, like listening and really hearing people and seeing where I can either connect them to people that can help them, or be the builder and connector and work alongside them. So I think that's one of the keys is once you have identified your purpose, own that and like say that to yourself every day. I literally say that to myself every day. There's a sticky on my wall right by my bed. And every morning I get up, I say my affirmations. And one of them is live your purpose, because only I can do it. Nobody can do what I do, just like no one can do what you do. And I respect profoundly what you do and how you show up in the world, but that's your purpose. If I tried to do it, it wouldn't be authentic to who I am. So that's like that first step. Once you find your purpose, the liberation around living it, however it shows up, is so powerful, and it's easier actually. So when I stepped on that stage, to be clear, I may not have seemed like I was nervous, ma'am. Okay. Like, I was like, first of all, I don't know anybody here, and I'm in front of
And none
800.
and none of them speak English.
None of them, nobody. And they're all looking at me like, well, what's she going to say? What is she about to talk about? What's she about to get into? And so, but I also remembered my purpose was to be here and to share love and share kindness. And that was the theme of my talk. So that in itself really grounded me for when I stepped on stage to speak and then play.
I think like you're simplifying the situation. Like when you're like, find your purpose and live your purpose. Like that's
You're
so
right.
hard. It's not that easy. Like
No.
I probably figured out my purpose when I was younger because I had grandmothers that were chatty. Like, this is like part of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think for the normal person, finding your purpose is very difficult
Mm-hmm.
because you're drawn by so many things. Like, oh, I'm gonna run in this direction. I'm gonna run in this direction. Maybe this is what I should be doing. My parents told me I should be doing this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Finding your purpose isn't so easy. So, how do you recommend that people find it?
Well, I never said it was easy, y'all. Okay. It,
No,
it felt impossible most of the time. I actually, if I'm being really honest, I didn't really discover my purpose until probably maybe 2 or 3
yesterday.
years ago. Yeah, maybe 20 minutes ago, actually, before we hopped on this good live stream. I didn't, I think I was always living it, but actually acknowledging it and stepping into it with the intentionality and authenticity. But that was not something that I was doing. And I think it's because I was so busy chasing the next thing. And I never actually sat in the discomfort of not really knowing what am I supposed to do? What is my impact supposed to look like? And I think you and I have talked about this a number of times. Like, you go through so many different things in life, like the loss of my mother 10 years ago and the loss of my grandmother 2 years ago. And, so many losses and then gains, right? But even when all those things are happening, you still never settle into it. So like, I really didn't settle into it until maybe like 2 years ago or 20 minutes ago, however you want to look at that. And it is hard. And actually, most of the time it feels impossible. Um, so I'll add to that, finding your purpose, but also find your people, like the people that are going to
Mm,
hold you accountable and that are going to influence how you show up in the world. Because a lot of times we think it's, you're born into a family. You can't help who you're born in, what family you're born into, the circumstances. But once you become a certain age, it does become your responsibility to nurture and till the ground that you were given. The circumstances you were given are no longer your excuse. And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people to hear, because then they can cop out, well, I was born this way and this is just what it is. And it's like, no, my dad has always coined this phrase. We just went to Jackson, Mississippi last week. And he was like, CALIDA, I've eaten foods I would have never eaten. I've met people I would have never met, because of you and your brother. Like, the experiences that you all have had as children and now as adults have afforded me opportunities to experience those things. So while he was not born into a life filled with like luxury and all these opportunities, he did sacrifice. He and my mother did sacrifice for us. And then it was our responsibility to leverage those sacrifices so that we could turn around and pour into them the way that they sacrificed and poured into us. So I think there's multiple layers, Tammy. Does that make sense?
I know. Yeah, it's very deep.
Yeah.
So how do you know, um, how do you know if you're on the right path?
Oh, how do you know you're on the right path? Well, you
Because you're
don't.
talking about purpose, like you've been talking about purpose and living on purpose. Like, how do you know if you're on the right path or if you're completely screwing up?
Oh, I mean, you screw up. You make a big mess. Like a lot of times, you spoke about me playing the violin. I always thought that I was just going to teach. Like that was going to be my moment. I was going to play the violin. I was going to teach till I was like 80. Like I literally was like, I'm going to die teaching a scale. Like that was going to be it. I did not realize that I had untapped potential that lived in me as a speaker, as someone that could speak life into other people. I didn't know that that existed. But what had to happen was I had to fail, big fail, in order to realize pulling myself out of those failures was going to be the launching pad for other opportunities and other skills that I had in me that hadn't really been activated. So, I mean, honestly, you have to step into failure. And there are people that do not believe in failure. They're like, no, you can't fail. You do have to fail. And everybody fails every day. And it's okay. Let's just normalize that. Like it's okay because then you can actually see what you're made of and how you show up in the world. Because if you think you can't fail, that's that's a little arrogant because the life will slap you in the face. And I have gotten slapped in the face by life many times and still will. But it's who you're around, who you surround yourself with, and you have to reinvent that circle often. That circle, like I met you, right? And we've met a lot of people in the time that you and I have met one another, and we have still stuck, right? We have still like deepened our relationship and your level of accountability with me. Like full stop, y'all. Anybody that doesn't know Tammy, like it is not comfortable to be held accountable by her. So that's the kind of person you want in your life. Somebody that's gonna hold your feet to the fire. Because
I
then
know.
you don't really know, you don't know you until somebody really calls you out on some stuff and you're like, oh, okay. Well, that was uncomfortable. And then you have to sit with that discomfort because that's a moment of growth. And it's like you cut a weed out of a garden and all of a sudden something new and beautiful starts to bloom. And I believe that's legs of your purpose. No one ever said it was going to be cut and dry, a recipe. But
Yeah,
but
no, that's so super interesting. I think,
mm-hmm.
I was talking to Bria. So she's applied to colleges, and one of the questions was like, what do you want to do? Like in the future. And I was like,
Right.
how do you ask a 17-year-old that question?
Exactly.
Because like we are all amalgamate, we're like we morph, right? As you go through this and you go through that and you decide this and you decide that. Um, so that was super interesting. I was like, don't get hung up on that question. Because I
Mm-hmm.
went to school pre-vet and I ended up being an English major because I didn't want to dissect a cow's eye.
Thank you,
Like
Tammy.
legit. I saw the syllabus. I was like, excuse me, let me get out of here. Um, but let me ask you a question. Uh, how do you, so you show up all the time, fabulous, maybe confident, not confident. We don't even need to know. But I think so. This whole show is about like teaching women how to build resilience, how they come back stronger after their adversity. So I wanted to ask you like you how do you show up like ready to go? Like where does that stage confidence come from? Which was, by the way, in India, like I was sitting on the stage like next to you. I was like, this chick is phenomenal. Like I had to speak, but you played. Like I think that was so phenomenal. So yeah, like where do you get your confidence from? Like what are some keys to like building confidence?
Yeah. So I will just say that specific situation was a unique one, and it was a lot of chaos. So I actually I didn't have a choice except to step into the discomfort of the nervous energy in that specific situation. But what I will say is, like, how do I show up? Man, that it's such a deep question, Tammy, because uh, when sometimes I feel like I'm on autopilot almost of just showing up, and you just show up and you do the thing and then you walk away and it's like, whew, okay, that's done. But I embrace the energy around the nervousness, the uncertainty. And I didn't used to do that. Like, I was like, there has to be a medication for this. Like, I don't want to be nervous. I don't want to be scared. I just want to show up and be present. But what I needed to do was actually internalize those feelings of my heart pounding, and sometimes my stomach would get really nervous, and I think the reason that I show up that way is because I care so much. I care about what is my impact going to mean to people? Who is that one person in the room who maybe was going to take their life, who maybe didn't think that they were valuable enough, but because I showed up and I spoke life into them, or I played and something about that music connected to them. um, that's really how I've stepped into that confidence. And sometimes I play the reels, which maybe this is like low key crazy, and probably I'm glad I go to therapy, but sometimes I'll play the reel in my head of people not speaking life into me, of people saying, actually, no, you're not good enough, or you could have done better, or you will never do this and this. There are people that I share blood with who have said that to me. You will never do this, you will never do that. And not only have I done the thing, and not because of me, I believe in a higher power, but I didn't do the thing. I not only did it, but I actually surpassed what I thought I could accomplish. And so I really do believe there's some self-talk in there that is so crucial, especially when you've been beaten down in different circumstances and relationships with people, both platonic and otherwise. It's really that self-nurturing, and I've just recently in my early 40s started actually self nurturing and talking to myself. And again, and I'm always going to say this, that sphere of influence, like the people who talk to you, and you have to be really cautious about who you allow in, like who you allow to talk into your life, because there are a lot of miserable people in the world. That's just the reality of things. There are 8 billion people on this planet. Everybody is not content, and everybody has circumstances, but who you allow into your life and the way that they speak life into you is absolutely going to determine how your confidence surfaces and shows up in spaces, how your resilience is like permanent. And I will say mine is it's permanent with a side of high key emotions. Like, I am such an emotional person. Like, I cry about everything. I cry about really happy things. I cry about sad things. But there's something to that carries resilience to me. I mean, I think not today, because we talked earlier today, but pretty much every time you and I have talked, I've either cried tears of laughter or tears of, oh my gosh, she was right. And that's why I think there's such staying power in our friendship and our relationship. But and to that point, for the women who are like, how do I build that confidence? That sphere, that group of people, if they're not speaking life into you or holding you accountable or saying, hey, actually, you weren't great. Like, this was not good at all. If you don't have that in your life, you need to make new friends, because they're not going to help you grow, and they're not going to actually help you activate what's truly possible in your life.
Okay, so this is a tough question, and there may be no answer.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
No, but go ahead, Tammy. You
What if um you don't come from that family? Your family's just been down on you, or they haven't supported you. They haven't done anything to nurture you. And the people that you're surrounded with don't do either. So what if you find yourself on an island, not really of despair, but of like, nobody's supporting me. So, like, I don't know. I have like some answers are probably not good answers, but like, how do you start from scratch with your relationships? I think is the question.
That's a really hard one. I mean, if I'm being really really vulnerable, I would say you would have to start a relationship with yourself first. Because if you can't be at peace with you, then bringing other people into the situation is not going to create that environment. I will be honest and say, I took myself on a trip by myself for my 42nd birthday. Not afraid to say I'm 42 because it's fabulous.
You should
But
have
I went
invited
by
me, but you
myself.
didn't. I totally would
Girl,
have gone with you. But
I
anyway,
know, but I had to do. But the thing is, Tammy, I had to do that because I had not sat by myself with myself like ever. I always had to have people around. I always needed to have that energy of other people because then it gave me permission to not have to really deal with my own internal mess. And let me tell you, that trip changed everything because I really had to sit with myself and I was uncomfortable, like being alone, like really, and not knowing anyone. There were moments where I met people or whatever, but like being by myself and like with my thoughts and listening to those thoughts and releasing some of those thoughts that I was carrying about myself. I came back with a different energy. And I'll just say at that time I was dealing with someone and they were like, your energy's different. I was like, allow that to be the lesson. We're done. We're done. I don't think this is gonna work. Thank you. Thank you for your services. They are no longer needed. Thank you.
I went to the Bahamas by myself for my birthday at the end of November. And that's what my life was missing.
Mm-hmm.
Being
Mm-hmm.
quiet with
Yes.
myself and asking all those tough questions. Um,
It was hard. It felt impossible. Like the first night of being by myself, like I was excited to be there because I'm like, okay, I made it. I made it to my resort. Everything's cool. And then like as the night got quieter, it was just me and my brain. And it was uncomfortable. Like there were definitely moments where I would just start crying for no reason, really because I hadn't actually spent that time with me, with just Kalida Nicole Jones. Like no other people, no other voices, no outside influences, just me. And and allowing that space for myself of being uncomfortable. And so I think when you talk about someone being on a deserted island and not having the people, not having the community, it's it's essentially you have to nurture you. Like you really have to find space. And what that has created for me, so once I came back, I try to find pockets where it's like, actually, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just need to be by myself. And it's still uncomfortable because I'm so used to like corralling people around me. And because I love people, I want to be around people. I want to love and laugh. But sometimes I need to be by myself and check on me, like actually check on me and tune in. So a lot of times we're tuned out. I think technology has given agency to that where you don't have to be tuned in. You can just like put something on the TV or on TikTok, Instagram, wherever, and you don't have to actually be focused on yourself. But forcing yourself to sit in a space that is not for the weak. That is not for the weak at
yeah,
all.
that is real. Um, but when you talk about like building confidence, that's part of it is being
Mhm.
okay to be with yourself.
Yes.
And most people aren't. I think
Mhm.
most people are not comfortable like sitting in space with themselves.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know how we sort of fix that or how we like nurture like that muscle, which is
Mhm.
like I'm fine being by myself. Um, as a single woman, it's been to my detriment because I'm good with being by myself.
Mhm.
Like, unless you're adding some massive like value,
Right.
I'm
Right.
good being by myself.
Right.
Um, okay, so listen, you've been on stage in front of like hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
Give me a couple of keys that you would give to some of the people listening that would be like, hey, here's how you build confidence in every situation, whether you're walking into like your boss's office or you're going into the school principal to talk about your kid or you're going on a date. Like,
Mhm.
how do you build that confidence muscle?
To be honest, I release the outcome. I say, it doesn't matter what happens. You're going into this, girl. Like, and you got this. Whatever happens, like, I can't control the outcome of this. I've done the process of like practicing, whether it's practicing or whether it's speaking, whether it's having that tough conversation with a friend or, you know, a significant other. I have to release the outcome. And I didn't used to do that. And this is something that, you know, through therapy, I've gained more confidence in how to do that, like in preparing for being on stage and for talking to people, for even coming on your podcast today, you know, like releasing the outcome, I think it's a power move in my opinion, because it doesn't, like, the outcome, I can't do nothing about that. If you didn't like it, I can't help you with that. You got to work that out in your journal. I cannot support you on that journey, but I can give you my best and show up as my best. And the outcome of that, what that means for the listeners or people that are involved, that's on you. I have to release that. And I didn't used to do that. Like, I was always looking for feedback, like immediate feedback. Like after something happened, I'd be like, okay, what did you think? How was it? You know, did I speak okay? Was my shirt crooked? Or my shoe, you know, but when you release the outcome of it, that for me anyway, that has helped me with performances, with teaching, you know, because I teach all over the country. I teach a lot of different kinds of kids from different backgrounds, rural, city, you know, communities of untapped potential, communities with endless potential and resources. I have to release those outcomes. All I can do is operate in love. And that's really how I show up. I don't always get it perfect. It's messy, but I do my best to show up with love first. And I release the outcome. Like literally, I will whisper that as I'm walking on stage. I'll say,
Um,
release the outcome. And then I
that's
go.
awesome. All
Yeah.
right, give us another nugget.
Another nugget. Okay. Sometimes before I go out on stage or before I go into whatever space it is, I will sit in a chair, and like, you all should try this. I will sit in a chair and I will close my eyes and imagine the floor under my feet, like actually feel the floor holding me up. And there's something very powerful about that. It feels like when you feel the floor underneath your feet, it feels like a foundation is holding you and you can't fall, like you can't crack. And so I will do that and breathe through that for about 10 to 15 seconds. And again, I just remind myself, I love you, you love me, and you love the people that you don't know, these strangers that you've never met. You love them because you're showing up for them. And so I always try to put that energy out front first before I step out there, even if I'm nervous. And I was nervous in India, Tammy. Don't be talking about I was nervous, girl. All the people, I was nervous. So that's another nugget. And then it's like that. I think that actually connects to positive self-talk, which I do as well. Like I try to really talk to myself with positivity, and then I embrace the nerves, because you know what? If I'm not nervous when I play my violin, I get scared, because it means I wonder if I care as much as I used to. So I
Yeah.
actually embrace my heart pounding and racing and like a little bit of shaking and jitters, because it means I really care about what I'm about to share with the world, that I want to give the world. And so I try to embrace that and cultivate it and allow it to be present, and still push through it to give the best performance or the best talk or you know, the best feedback I can to whomever I'm speaking to.
Oh my God. I love you so much. So what are you working on? Where,
Oh my
first of
gosh.
all, where can people find you? Where can people follow you? And what
Yes.
are you on?
Okay, you can follow me on LinkedIn and on Instagram at C&J Associates, or you can do my personal page, Kalida._Nicole. And I am working on so much right now, I can't keep it straight. I'm still playing, I'm still teaching. I just got back from Jackson, Mississippi, teaching some kids down there at Jackson State and also high school students. I'm working with Creative Evolutions, which is an arts ecosystem that I co-own. We're doing a bunch of searches for some arts and culture institutions across the country. And we're just really focusing on loving people, centering people who run and organize and do work with these organizations. So just busy loving the world and have an impact.
Oh, that's amazing. We'll put this out so everybody sees it, but thank you so much for coming on and
Of
sharing your
course.
wisdom. You're amazing.
Thank you, Tammy. And thank you for making this platform possible for people to grow and sit at the table and learn and love. And I hope that this impact is felt globally.
Thanks, girl.
Mhm.
All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to Tammy's Table. Um, we just like every week we have like amazing people at CALIDA. Uh, so please follow us, join us, and we will talk to you soon. We'll talk to you next Monday at noon.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.